I like to think of it in this frame it very simply, that what brings me the most excitement and joy and goodness in my life is the right thing. It's the right thing. And so just focusing it from a purely selfish perspective is the easiest way to like frame it and keep it simple. But it's one of the most selfless things you can do, because when you grow your power in that way and you harness that joy and love in your life, you just shine so bright. You end up lifting everybody up. You end up helping everybody around you, man. You inspire people. When you live your dream and do your thing and follow your heart, you inspire people. People love that. Everybody needs it, man. You know, in this world, there's a lot of people that don't got none of that, man. They got no magic.
Welcome to the Beauty Seed.
Recording in progress.
Recording in progress. And we see recordings the potential for recording all around you, recording the goodness, which, you know, Evan Burton, welcome to the BDC. We're
Hey,
so pleased to have you with
thanks,
us.
man.
Uh, I've been in the mix with you for a while now, and
That's
we've had
true. That's true.
some opportunities to sit and chat. I'm looking forward to another one.
We haven't
Uh,
had any like real dedicated let's sit and chat times. That's something I really
yeah,
love about podcasts, is like it's an opportunity to set aside time to do nothing but just have a conversation.
yeah,
And it's like
connect with
usually
each
with
other.
my brothers that I love, you know? So it's like it's a beautiful thing, man.
So great. What I want to dig into is first, there's a couple things. There's obviously a bunch of things. How did you turn the pucker and squeeze it into juice?
Mm, gosh, I mean that's the story of my life, right?
I know. Well, give us some background of where you and your brother, came up together, obviously, and developed Indubious,
Yeah.
which was a project you guys came out with Belief at
Hmm.
a perfect time for the message of it, the vibe of it came forward at this time when it was really needed. How did that
I'm glad
come?
you feel that way, man.
Yeah. What was the
There
trajectory
certainly
behind the process?
was something special about that album. Um, I feel like that album was like piece of art. You know, like albums these days, albums are becoming few and far between because everyone's kind of focusing on singles being released, right? So, but to have this like concentric art piece that encapsulate this energy, um, that was definitely like our our kind of best one, you know, like concept album, if you will.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of the broader question, so the story of Indubious is very deeply tied to our life story. You know, I tend to think that there's these like kind of boring human stories, right? And these things that play out in our lives as themes, but really behind them is this greater spiritual discovery. You know, because I believe as what we truly are, spiritual beings having a human experience, that we come here to unfold and deepen these themes based on you know, just normal stuff, normal everyday stuff,
Yeah.
like our jobs, our creativity, our family. Um, but our story's a little bit more than the average human story because we were both born with cystic fibrosis. So cystic fibrosis is a genetic disorder. Um, it's pretty common as far as I think it's the most common life-shortening genetic disorder in the United States. And so when we were born back in the 80s, the life expectancy was like 16 or 18. So we
Yeah.
were diagnosed when we were very young. You know, my brother was 2, and so I was diagnosed before I was born. And the doctors told my mom that your kids are not going to live past their teenage years. Uh, um, my mom and dad both were into kind of like science of the mind, spirituality, metaphysics. And so they didn't really take that at face value and go, okay, well, my kids are going to die. They said, you know, my mom would always say to us growing up, like, you can do anything
Yeah.
you want with the power of your mind and positive thinking. And let's visualize you guys being healthy and living into your old age. And, you know, so we did all this cool stuff. My parents are amazing, man. My dad, I miss him. God, he's been on the other side now for 7 years, but he's with me more than ever, man. He's, you know, he's like at my back, like he's my cheerleader, and he's with us right now. You know, that's how our ancestors from the other side roll. You know, that's how they roll. Anyways, I digress. My mom and dad raised us with this real positive, spiritual, conscious kind of energy, you know, and then into, let's say, our early teens, my brother and I were really heavily exposed to reggae music because my dad was super into all sorts of good music. We got our musical talent from our mom because my mom is a singer and she was in a band with my uncle, and they were doing the thing in Southern Oregon like Indubious was doing, but 30 years prior, you know, called
Mhm.
the Herman Berman Band. We got our musical skill from our mom. We got our musical taste from our dad. My dad was into really cool, like, you know, hip hop and reggae. And I just remember listening to Bob Marley records and, you know, Steel Pulse and, you know, Third World. And then we got into like
And
real
that was in the
Jamaican
days,
dance hall.
real quick, that was in the days when Steel Pulse was actually coming through Ashland. I
Totally.
saw
Yeah, no, that was way
I
before, that
saw
was way
them
before my
a number
time,
of
man.
times. Yeah. Yeah, great.
Yeah. And so, you know, that whole message really impacted us. And we felt that my brother and I, we kind of have twin energy, you know. Everything we've done, we've really kind of done it just synced up, aligned in the same vibe at the same time. We kind of have this like intertwined life path.
You have
And so,
such a you have such a twin energy that actually for like the first 3 years I knew you guys, I actually was operating under the presupposition that you were twins.
well,
Just
that's
funny.
the very popular rumor.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
totally.
I think that even if someone doesn't hear the rumor, they look at us and look at our mannerisms and listen to our voice and are like, these guys got to be twins, right? But
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
not. We're brothers, 2.5 years apart. We didn't really like sync up in our how we looked and talked and acted until we were like in our, you know, early 20s or whatever. Um, so, you know, we lived past our teenage years, obviously. I'm 40 years old now. I ended up needing to get a double lung transplant in 2011. And this was after Indubious, our band, had started to kind of blow up.
Mhm.
And it was the first year we had a new manager. It was Chris Decker from Earth Dance. Remember Earth Dance?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was our manager. He had gotten us into like every festival we wanted. We were playing Reggae in the River. We were gonna play Oregon Country Fair, um, uh, Northwest World Reggae Festival. Anyways, we had to cancel it all because I was dying.
Yeah.
You know, I was on oxygen. I couldn't breathe. And so I was admitted to the hospital and they put me on the transplant list. And I got my lungs. I'm at an incredible recovery. And Dubious went on to play many more years, 13 more years we
Can
played
I ask
for.
you a question about the lungs? Because I have a friend
Sure.
who had a heart thing and he was on the transplant list for a long time and
Uh-huh.
finally got the heart of an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
And he was in his 40s by then.
Yeah.
It in some ways changed his energy and his demeanor. I mean, obviously he was getting more blood flow and oxygen and all of those things, but really a fundamental taking on the energy of somebody else's parts. Did you
For
have
sure.
any of that in your experience of that, of
You
having
know,
somebody else's lungs?
it's, I mean, if you took me before my transplant versus after, I'm going to have way better energy because I can breathe.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
totally.
and you're going through already one of the like biggest physical health crises someone can go through. You're going through organ failure, which,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
by the time you get your lungs, the reason you're getting your lungs is because you're high up enough on the transplant list that you're going to die soon.
Hmm.
So it's like this is not like some people they'll wait on a liver transplant list for a while and then eventually get them when they're in relatively good health. This is a different scenario with lungs. So you know, the process of having this like reborn energy is already so invigorating. It's really hard to like delineate that
Yeah,
from,
totally.
you know what I'm saying?
For
And
for him, it was palpable, is why I brought it up.
yeah, you know, not so much for me, I guess. It's not so much like, oh, I feel someone else's energy with me. Um, I know that it definitely is. I know that it definitely is with me.
Yeah,
You know, I don't focus on it too much. I try not to think about it because it's so weird that if you
yeah.
start thinking about the fact that somebody else's lungs are inside of you, it's just kind of it kind of messes with your head. You know what I'm saying?
Well, in a way, that it was a gift,
Yeah.
and they're your lungs.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
there's a shift of perspective that can be pretty valuable in that. Um, if
For
you weren't
sure.
meant to have them, then you wouldn't.
That's right. I mean, it's the biggest gift you can get, right? Because it's life.
Hmm.
Life is the greatest gift, man. Without it, we can't even receive any other gift.
And
We're not here to perceive what gifts we have or don't have. You know what I mean?
and then we can get into, now that you have the backing of your own breath, which is fundamental to our
Hmm.
experience here. Uh, you put it into use.
That's right.
So yeah, now we can get back to Indubious and what happened with that newfound vigor that you had from having breath.
Well, Indubious lasted for 13 more years after that. We're currently on a indeterminate hiatus. We don't know how long it's going to last, but things kind of got to a point. Honestly, it got to a point where it became obvious by the external forces of the universe that something was like, okay, this is not meant to go farther the way that it is.
Mhm.
Um, an example, we had one of our biggest tours planned ever. We were going to play Rototom Festival in Spain, which is the world's biggest reggae festival. We're going to play Boomtown Fair in the UK and go on a tour with Easy Star All Stars throughout Europe. And I mean, obviously, we're really excited. This is the biggest culmination of everything that we've always wanted, you know, this big international tour. And the day before we're supposed to leave, my brother falls and breaks his wrist. So that's just one example of the type of things from the universe that were kind of, it felt like it wasn't just the external circumstances, it was also the internal vibration where I started to feel stagnant in it. It started to feel like this old thing that I was continuing to do. And it just wasn't feeling resonant any longer. You know,
Yeah.
it's like when you're supposed to make this shift in your life, it starts as a little tap on your door, like, you don't listen and a year goes by and it's like boom, 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 boom. You don't listen and it's like boom, someone busts down your door and burns down your house and now you gotta go. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where it was getting. And so we decided collectively as a band, like, let's take a hiatus. Skip's starting a family. Skip's my brother, the bassist. I'm
Yeah.
obviously you know this. I'm saying this for the
Yeah.
general listeners.
Appreciate it.
And Maddie's our drummer, whom you know very much.
Yeah.
And we talked and said, uh, let's take a break. Could be a year, 2 years, 3 years. We'll just kind of feel it out and see which way it guides us. It was very clear for me that I was meant to start my new solo project. And so we decided that our last show would be on New Year's Eve, 2023. Which was like, I guess, is it New Year's Eve 2023?
That sounds accurate.
It's the last New Year's Eve that there was. When 2023 was ending and
Yeah.
2024 was starting. Okay, just to be clear. And so we played that show. Man, it was an amazing show. Sold out. Ashland, were you there?
No.
No, sold out at the Ashland Armory New Year's Eve. Beautiful. It was probably for me the height of my life of like my excitement and joy and energy and vibration and faith in the future and all this kind of good stuff, right? Because I was saying goodbye to Indubious, this beautiful guiding light of my life that's brought so much joy and love and, you know, everything. And then
Hmm.
welcoming in this new part of my life was very exciting, which is me starting my new solo project, Heaven Zest. And so we play this show and it goes great, but I end up getting sick and I end up getting the flu. After a few days, I'm the sickest that I've ever been in my life, bro. Like
Which
this
is
was like
saying a
some,
lot.
yeah. This was the worst cold I've ever had by far. They tried to kill me,
Yeah.
and my lungs started shutting down, and I uh, went to the hospital, and they ended up life flighting me to Washington. They thought I was having lung transplant rejection, and I ended up getting better. They put me on a bunch of steroids. I got better. I got out of the hospital. A few weeks went by. I started getting worse again. I ended up going back. They put me on more steroids. I got out. I got better. This process went on over and over and over again. But every time my lung function went down and down and down, it started stepping down and down, right? To where I
Mhm.
got to a point where I couldn't even really walk anymore. I was on oxygen, and it started to get really freaking real with my
Mhm.
family. What are we going to do? This is continuing on months and months. I'm not improving. I'm getting worse. Um, so we decided to do the only thing we could really do is go admit me to UCSF and say, hey, this is what's happening. What do we do? And they said, you're likely going to need another lung transplant. In my mind, I didn't want to accept this, and I still thought that I was going to get better and all this stuff. But I'm like, I'm not going to take a chance, because if I do the wrong thing out of whatever this, my inner spiritual cockiness of everything's going to be great, then, and I die, then I'm not going to be there for my daughter and my
Mhm.
kids and my wife. And this is kind of stuff I don't want to mess around with. So uh it got real after, we're talking 4 months. It got real obvious that if I didn't get lungs, I was going to die.
Yeah.
Um and this was far harder and worse than my first lung transplant. My first lung transplant was a lot different because there was a real gradual decline in my lung function. So your body has some time to kind of start to get used to you not having enough oxygen, right? I mean, bodies are incredible the way they can adapt. But this time, this most recent time, my lung function went shoot down all the way down to like in the 20s in a matter of a few months. And so uh, the lack of oxygen to my body and to my brain was causing me all sorts of mental issues, panic and anxiety and depression, and just really about as gnarly as something can get. But I did end up getting my lungs. It came through. Um, I didn't know I was going to make it. I didn't know if I was going to make it. It got to a point where I'm like, all right, this might be the end for me, man. And that sucks because I want more time here, but I need to accept that so I can spend these last moments with my family in truth without
Yeah.
the delusion of, oh, everything's going to be fine. It's like, hey, if this is our last time together, then let's make this count. Obviously, I'm not having that conversation with my 6-year-old daughter, or at the time, 5-year-old. Um,
Mhm.
but I
What
made
kind of
it.
conversations were you having with her?
Uh, she wasn't really open to the real conversation.
Mhm.
And when we would talk about it, she'd kind of get squirmy and start saying something else, right? She kind of like, obviously, I don't want to talk about this, Dad, on energy.
Yeah.
Um, there was one time that she addressed it directly. And it was when I was in the hospital and my wife had come to visit with my daughter. And my wife had parked somewhere she shouldn't have and was like, um, parked somewhere where she could get a ticket and get towed. I'm like, well, babe, like I was kind of giving her a hard time. I was like, you can't do that. And you got to do this. And she broke down. She's like, I'm fucking crying and you're fucking dying in the hospital. Blah, blah, blah. She said something like that. And Seal's like, Mom, Papa's not dying. That's the only time she really referenced it.
Mhm.
And it was odd, the way that a child processes something like that is not the same way that we do. They can't really process it. And the way that she processed it was weird because she kind of wasn't very nice to me. She was kind of pissed off at me and
Yeah.
she wouldn't listen. And there were a few times like I was literally just like laying on the couch doing nothing for months because I couldn't. I was just, I was dying. And I'd say, Sela, go pick up your shoes. You can't leave them there in the middle of the hallway. And she'd look at me and she'd go, you know what, Papa? You can't tell me what to do, and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. There's no enforceability here.
And I'd be like, damn, like literally, there's nothing I can say to that right now. I'm like, all right. I'm like, Amber, help me. Calling my wife, It was kind of like it's kind of like pack mentality, like when the alpha dog like has a limp, like everyone kind of
Yeah.
pushes him to the side a little bit. That's like the mental capacity that someone at that age is kind of running on. And even to this day, I don't know that she really fully grasps the high stakes that were on the table. I think
Mhm.
that's for the best.
Yeah.
I think that something like that can happen and be terrible and shitty and traumatic, and then it can get better and we can go right back to living our lives. As long as we process what we felt.
That's the
Process what we feel.
I was about to point that out. It's like
Yeah,
there are ways of integrating experience that,
sure.
well, they take the pucker and squeeze them into juice, as it
That's right.
were. You know?
So, we're here on the other side. My family life is great. My daughter's doing amazing. I'm alive. What more do you want, buddy? You made it through. And
Yeah.
so I've always had this kind of high self opinion of like me being this like guy that lives in the present, that really cherishes his life because of what I've been through in the past. After
Hmm.
going through it again, I'm telling you, man, there's always deeper to go. There's always more we can appreciate your life. There's so much more gratitude we can find. It's unfortunate it had to take me almost dying again for me to get there again.
Hmm.
But I mean, since it happened, I might as well be grateful for it.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. How was it? What was, we all have this in our lives to some degree, but what was for you? How did life in its progression after the first transplant lead you into less attention on the value of these moments that we have and the reminder of that second experience seems like
Yeah.
a needed thing to kick you
Yeah.
back into gear.
I mean, it's really easy to fall right back into old patterns, man. I mean, as I've become older and wiser and experienced more, it's easy for me to catch myself and go, "Hey, buddy, you're doing that same old stupid thing." Like if I wake up in the morning, like, okay, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I got this, and I'm sitting there, I'm doing this thing about the next day. I'm like, whoa, 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 what? Life isn't supposed to be like this, man. If you're doing something, just be all there, enjoy it. And if you're not enjoying it, then just stop doing stuff and go outside and take a walk.
That takes a lot of courage to actually do.
It,
To
it,
take off the supposition of this overlay of what needs to be done in the day takes a lot of courage to really put that on the table, look at it and go, well, what is this thing we call success? What is this outcome that we're striving for? And is it worth striving for?
I think it's something that's like packaged and sold to people as a dream. That's not
Hmm.
the dream. You have to
It's a dream.
redefine success
Yeah.
because like people are like, oh, success is going to be money and notoriety and status.
Yeah. Which you
But
were on your way to having with Indubious. And
yeah,
how real did it get when the reality of the embodiment, the body literally that we
yeah,
have fails and you're like, oh, I was leading up through all this stuff.
yeah.
And when it gets real, how meaningful is that?
Well, when it gets when it
You know?
gets real like that, and when you're faced with your own death, that stuff means absolutely nothing. It becomes nothing. The grinding and building, it's like you would do anything to spend one more day with your daughter. You wouldn't do
Hmm.
anything to be the most popular musician in the world. At that point, you don't care about that. You care about what's real. And so it's like, after my first transplant, I fell, I was young, I was in my early
Yeah.
20s. I think I was 25 or something. And so I fell right back into like, okay, well, now I'm really going to make this music thing work. And, I'm going to do this and do this and do that. And I want to get this festival and this. And I was a workaholic and all this kind of stuff. I think having a child is really, really helpful and balancing for the ego. And through that process, for me, a big part of me, which is not really an inherent part of me, died. Ended up dying and going completely away, which is that kind of, I need to be the coolest, the best for me to feel
Hmm.
good about myself kind of guy. You get this understanding of a greater picture of your life as a provider. And really, even without kids, in the sense, the greater picture of my life as a provider,
Yeah, greater meaning through taking on greater responsibility for your own.
taking on greater responsibility for my own being. And the fact that there's all these people out here in the world, fans and supporters and friends that follow me and follow my story and listen to my music, that derive great joy and meaning from it.
Hmm.
And so in a sense, I'm a pillar like that for some people out there, and that's a responsibility, but it's also a privilege.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's also a privilege. I've been thinking lately a lot about like the idea of a king.
Yeah.
And like there's these people like, oh yeah, you think you're a king, yeah, you think we're king and queens, like we're royalty, yeah, that's stupid or arrogant. But it's like the idea of a king for me is not someone who's like sitting back, in their big golden chair and having someone feed them grapes. It's someone that has been elected by the people that is entrusted to take care of the people. It's like it's not a position of being served. It's the ultimate position of being the servant.
Hmm. In
The
its
true
highest,
king.
yeah, in its highest presentment.
Yeah. And so that's that's the energy that I want to emulate. You know what I mean? In my
Hmm.
life, and touching back on the idea of me struggling with being present, even through my second, even through my after my first transplant. Um, Now, as I'm getting older and wiser, I like to think that that's not going to be as much of an issue for me moving forward. But you always got to remain. I always remain watchful of it. And
Hmm.
it's just how happy are you? It's really it's the simplest measure of it is how happy are you? Because when we're really truly happy and joyful, we're living in the moment. When we're loving our lives, we're right into our heart space.
And in the breath.
Hmm.
Yep. Your breath is trapped and your story is going a million miles an hour. It's a good thing to attend. It's likely going to show you where it is that you can let go of some shit so that you can relax back into being here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just like embodying the truth that we're right where we're supposed to be right now, right exactly where we're supposed to be. How could it be any other way?
There's a
How could it
question
be any other way?
for everybody. Yeah. And, well, we do have clear clear aspects of how it can be another way in the way that we see our lives over time, that yeah, we can actually occlude the reality to such a degree and go into such fictions in our head that it is hard to see the actuality of how how wonderful life is, you know? We
Yeah.
can get pretty caught up in that.
Oh, brother,
Yeah,
it's easy. I mean, anyone listening right now knows what that's like.
yeah.
It's the it's the human condition, man. I mean, those who are free from it are masters of life,
Hmm.
you know?
So speaking of which, I went to one of your Heaven Zest, your new project. I went to one
Yeah.
of your shows recently with my wife and my nephew, and I was really surprised and it was great fun.
Hmm.
And there was a sense of you on stage where you were in that. You were completely present. And I wanted to recount that you had in the audience a young lady whose birthday party it was. She was like
Hmm.
10. And you seemed to have ad-libbed entirely a song for her. Do you remember
Hmm.
that?
Hmm. Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So how has this experience allowed you to get out of your own way enough to get up on stage and go with it without all of the
Ah,
presupposition of a formula?
that's a great, great question. Thanks for noticing, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Um, it's really me just getting to a point where I'm really fully trusting myself.
Hmm.
You know, what I'm doing with my live shows is I am improvising a majority of the performance. So up to, I'd say 50% or more of it is just something is just I'm just making it up on the spot, the whole thing. That's
Hmm.
what I do with my weekly live streams. I have a weekly live stream called The Hump that I do on Facebook Live. So once a week, I play for an hour and a half and I make up a bunch of new songs on the spot. Um, it's a process of it's a trust fall with the
Yeah.
universe. It's a
Yeah.
trust fall with the universe, and you say, "Okay, I'm going to jump off the cliff." I hope you're going to catch me, and that's what I do, and it comes together. Sometimes it doesn't, and it's a little messy and it's weird, but that's okay too. You know, people are fine with that. And it's a deep process of me loving myself and saying what I can do right here right now regardless of my practice or whatever it is, me at my core, I'm going to be able to do this, you know what I mean? And it's to say that it hasn't been challenging and frightening to learn how to do it would be a lie because it
Yeah.
has. There's times when I'm going on stage, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to make a song about? Should I make it in this chord or this, or maybe this tempo like that? And I'm like, okay, stop. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that because the more I do that, the more I get into my mind. The more I get into my mind, I'm disconnected from my heart, which allows me to connect to the universal flow of the creativity that wants to come through. And so when I think of nothing and step on the stage completely empty, that's when it's really truly amazing. And that's
Hmm.
when, like, I'll do a live stream and I'll come up with 5 songs brand new. And they're like, damn, I should record all these songs and put them on an album. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
it amazes me that I can do it. I guess I'm just uh, lucky enough to be a channel for that creativity, that flow of creativity that's there in the universe,
Okay.
however it's being sent to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. So you just used a transitive disjunctive for the audience. That means that something that breaks the thought and disrupts some deeper truth in this.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
you just diminished what came after it. The ability to step into a flow with yourself and with creator and with all these things is built on the embodied processes that had to be gone through to get to where you are.
yeah.
So that's the just.
Very well
And so
said.
there's a
Yeah.
whole bunch there. One of those things to me, having spent, a couple decades learning my equipment, for instance, I had to learn how to be in this body how to be in this breath, and how to actually use the tools that I'm engaged with for expression. And I'm really amazed and stoked. It's exciting to see you in your flow on the equipment that you have. And there is a process that had to be gone through of diligent study to be able to be
For
at the point
sure.
where you
Absolutely.
can let that be out of the way.
Yeah, you have to get to a certain point to where you know it all well enough to where you can kind of forget about it.
Yep. So I had to catch you on that.
Yeah.
That just um, yeah. So I mean, how much time have you spent in your life daily in practicing on that beautiful Nord keyboard there? Or
I'm not a big practicer.
okay, what's your
Um, say that again, I'm sorry.
what has been your process, and how has that changed in this new iteration?
Well, I've always worked hard on writing songs and making music and production and recording and I'm a man of many hats. If
Yeah,
you take my
like
entire team of people that help me, marketing, art, graphic design, video, social media, promoting, booking agent, accounting, and put them all in this room, you just have me because that's just me. I do it all. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, so my process isn't so different now. I'm just continuing to do it, and the fact that I do my weekly live streams is really the greatest form of practice because it's really hard to go in a room by yourself and practice freestyling a bunch of silly songs in the moment without an audience, right?
It's so trippy. That is, yeah, it's true.
You can only really do that with the observer. The observer becomes the, reflection point for me understanding that I'm like entertaining someone. Only through that like setting is it really applicable. You can practice by yourself in a room all you want. You can be the best practicing by yourself in a room, but then you get on a stage in front of people, it's a different experience. It's a different
Yes,
practice.
sympathetic resonance.
They both are helpful for each other for sure. But for me, my biggest practice is my spiritual practice. It's my trust and faith in myself and in the universe and in the creator and in my path and my journey. And it's learning to master my mind and quiet my fearful thoughts and stop caring what other people think about me and how I carry myself and live my life and what I prioritize. Um, that's what makes me special, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. S- You know, I also have a lot of hats. I'm very capable of, many different things from growing up in the trades, all of the hammer and nails type stuff and
Yeah.
video editing and music and fine art and all kinds of things.
Podcasts.
Podcasts, and all the back end of what goes into making good sound quality and a
Yeah.
proper presentation and continuity throughout the things that I choose to talk about most often. In that process, I had the opportunity to come to an understanding with myself that uh, asking for help and allowing assistance from others was a great boon to my success. And how much of like do you find it necessary for your process to do all of those things for yourself by yourself, or is that what's that process been like, especially since
No, no,
you're
no,
stepping
no.
out
It's
of
more out of necessity, really.
yeah,
It was different with Indubious. I had more help. We've had several different managers. We had a booking agent. My brother helped with the graphic design. Um, Help is great.
yeah,
It takes a while to build to get to a point where you can pay someone to help you.
yeah,
I'm not real. I've been doing this now for what? It's been 6 months since my lung transplant. So I've started my new brand as of 6 months ago, really, truly. And
which
so,
everybody, if you have an opportunity, I'm a secret admirer.
oh, look at that.
These shirts are dope. They're really comfortable. The fabric is nicely chosen, and
Yeah, they're
and the
nice, huh?
print is excellent. And that's just one. So a little plug for Evan's swag here because it's
Nice.
really nicely thought out.
Thanks,
Um,
man.
yeah, totally. Yeah, that it's there's so much to know in that space, and it's so easy to get sidetracked into like what's actually of value for the people who are attending your process. I mean, how do you whittle that down to,
I don't think about that.
you
I
know, it
think
just
that that I
it's
think that
cool to me, I'm gonna do it. Is that what you
yeah,
mean? Yeah.
things can be as simple as that. You know, if you really truly trust your own intuition, the way
Hmm.
that I like to think about it is my primary task here on the earth is to take care of myself. I'm the one that's been entrusted with taking care of myself for life. That includes loving myself, giving myself healthy food, giving myself enjoyable experiences. Just like you're taking care of a kid. You wake up in the morning, you're like, what do you want to do today? What do you want to have for breakfast? What sounds good? Right? And so when you're attending to yourself like this and treating yourself in this manner, you're naturally going to do what brings the most joy and excitement for you. You
Hmm.
know, obviously there's things that are going to bring some excitement, like smoking crack, that you probably shouldn't do, right? You're gonna take care of yourself like a parent, say,
Not
no,
too
that's not
often.
that's not not too often, buddy. That's not good for you. Let's do something that's good for you because I care about you. I want you to have a nice, long, healthy, happy life. And so you wake up in the morning, you're like, what sounds fun? What sounds fun for me is I want to I have a dream and I had to hear a song in my dream and I want to go like record it and like share it with people and people are like, oh, it's so great. Like that's just like so fun for me. And so I like to think of it in this frame it very simply, that what brings me the most excitement and joy and goodness in my life is the right thing. It's the right thing. And so just focusing it from a purely selfish perspective is the easiest way to like frame it and keep it simple. But it's one of the most selfless things you can do, because when you grow your power in that way and you harness that joy and love in your life, you just shine so bright. You end up lifting everybody up. You end up helping everybody around you, man. You inspire people. When you live your dream and do your thing and follow your heart, you inspire people. People love that. Everybody needs it, man. You know, in this world, there's a lot of people that don't got none of that, man. They got no magic. They got no spirit, no God, no they got it just not there. And that's a grim place to be, man. And
It
so,
really is.
that's what I want to do. Is I just want to keep going. I just want to fly, be myself, share my
Yeah.
love. I want to be silly and weird and wacky and make people
Yeah.
laugh and love
Yeah.
themselves.
So to put it in practical terms, this is if you were unaware, it's a large part of the work that I do is coaching people on their language and coaching people on how to get into their stories to rewrite them in a sense
Mm,
and integrate them and move through them. And there's a really powerful message in what you just said. Well, a bunch of, I mean, the whole energy of substance of how you come into bringing word
mm.
is really powerful. And I feel you, brother. And
Thanks, man.
there's a tendency for people to externalize their own well-being onto the well-being of others. And it's ineffective by and large in people's lives until one focuses inward to ask themselves these questions that you're putting to yourself. How do I take care of myself the best that I know how so that I can, from a fundamental position, then show up and bring that out into the world?
Yeah.
And so, it's like that general, I can't remember his name, but there's a general statement, uh, clean up your own room.
Yeah.
And then you can start to clean up the area around you. You know, it's
Yeah.
like take care of your own space and really get into, yeah, being in love with yourself. Because there is a
100%, man.
lot of there's a lot of self-loathing that goes on subtly in people's worlds that really is a choice.
And
And the choice
that's
is
really
to look
that's
in.
really at the core of people pleasing.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
really
because
is.
so many of us are people pleasers. There's still a little bit of that in me, you know. Like I'll be walking through the store and someone comes and bumps into me. I go, "Oh, sorry." I'm like, "Wait, I'm not sorry. You bumped into me. What am I saying?" But I think that people pleasing comes from like just people who aren't feeling that great about themselves. They're like, "Well, if I make everyone else happy, then they're gonna love me so much more. I'm gonna feel good." But it's like, nah, man, that comes from you to you. And if you're
Yeah,
looking for that feeling from other people to be validated externally all the time, you're never gonna be fully there. You're never gonna find it because it's got to come
yeah.
from you, buddy.
Looking
It's taken me so
outside.
long to get there, man.
Oh, well, well, as you've already said, it's a, a process every day, and that,
Yeah,
if we stray from that, the universe is going to give you a quiet tap, and then it's going to give you a big loud knock on the door, and sometimes it's going to drop you on your fucking head.
that's right.
I we had a really powerful experience here. uh my buddy Jason's here with me doing some work and having some fun, some great conversations. And we went out of town for a couple of days. And a couple months ago, we started having a rat that was getting in our barn here that I
Yeah,
built. I built it. It's great. I love it.
nice.
And this rat's getting in, and the tendency is to go, that rat, why is it doing this to me?
Yeah,
And I got back, and it had eaten a pretty special representation of life for my friend here.
hmm
And in that process, I sat with it. I'm like, I know there's something here for me to really look at in myself. I built this place, and both figuratively and actually, I put the foundations of it in. I did, not that rat, you know. And in the process of that, my sitting with scarcity and the inability to step into abundance, I was cutting some corners that weren't big corners, but to save a couple $100 on some concrete here, and a little bit of extra framing there.
yeah.
In my building of the foundations, allowed that gap in my own process that let the rats in, and it's mine to remedy that in my own way in the world,
Mm.
and how that affects others. What can I do for my brother that I let that rat in? What can I do for my brother who had his the outcome of my lack of attention
Yeah,
affected him? So and so it's a whole process of we started off this conversation talking about those mundane aspects in life. Like, how much more mundane does it get when oh, there's a rat in my house, I got to deal with it. And it's an opportunity to
life,
look at
bro.
these little things and go, okay, how did this actually get to this point in my life? I could stop there and go, okay, set a rat trap, done. Or I can go, what led to a rat being in my space, in my life? And as a metaphor, there's like so many places that these things enter into our lives potentially. And we have an
Mm.
opportunity through each and every one of them as a guide
That's deep, bro.
to tighten up our shit and take responsibility.
Got to keep the rats out, man.
Ain't no Pied Piper coming, you know.
That's right. I
You
like
know,
it
trust the plan.
for sure. That's beautiful, man.
Oh, geez. Um, yeah, there's life is endlessly fascinating, and you know, the process of making music has taught me so much about being present especially since much of the music that I make is improvised, and I do do a lot of that in the studio alone, and have learned to be with the knowing that I'm connected to people who are in resonance with that,
Hmm.
and bring that space in. I call it in a sense, that energy. And
Mm.
so I'm curious about the your live improvised music thing is really exciting to me. I'm gonna have to check that out. Um,
Oh,
what's been
my, the live stream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not on Facebook though. No.
You can go. So if you go to YouTube and just
Yeah,
search Heaven Zest, you'll find my YouTube channel, and I upload all of my live streams.
yeah, and we'll put all those links and all that
Yeah.
in the show notes, obviously. What is, I know you can't really speak for Skip, but I'm curious what is going on with him and how's his progress
He
going?
just had a
And
baby.
yeah, so cool.
Yeah, he
And
just had a baby. And really, the beginning of the shift with Indubious started when we discovered iboga medicine. Um, my brother was struggling with some lifelong addictions
mhm,
and started to get really desperate and creative in what he was seeking that could help him because nothing was working. He
mhm,
eventually discovered the plant medicine iboga, which is from Africa. It's a root bark from Africa. And he went and he had a ceremony with the traditional Bwiti iboga provider. That's the tribe from Africa.
mhm.
And if you go and listen to our podcast, I have a podcast called Living Indubiously Podcast, and you dig through
Cool.
those episodes, you can find the one where he came back from his experience there. Um,
Excellent. And just a quick note, my second episode with Mark England, we talk about Big Booger quite a bit.
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, and so he not only got totally clean and sober, but he also ended up getting a strong vision from the medicine that he was meant to work with it, that he wanted to become a provider. And so
Uh-huh.
he went to Africa. He studied under the 10th generation Bwiti shaman, Magenda, and he came back and now he is an iboga provider. He's healing people, and that's what he does.
Mhm.
Um, it's a very profound and deep calling for him, and it's like something he's meant to do. He's so good at it, man, and
Talk about taking on a lot of responsibility.
he's helping a lot of people. I mean, yeah, I think that it was the right move for him. I mean, obviously it was the right move for him. It
Hmm.
it gave him something for him to build that was his in his life. And I think that's what he needed as a man and a husband and now a father and a provider.
Well, that
So
absolutely speaks to, like the clinical side of addiction. Uh, it's been found time and time again that people who have a lack of meaningful engagement in their life have a much higher rate of recidivism, meaning
of
going
course,
back to the old habits, than people who find a meaningful, engaged something to focus on in their life.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
And
cool.
so that direction for him was like a big step towards, okay, my brother's doing something else that's really big in his life. So that kind of started the energy of like, okay, um, how is this Indubious thing going to work farther with this? And then I ended up doing the medicine. And when I did the medicine the first time, um, it it showed me a lot of things, a
Yeah.
lot of incredible realities and visions of my future, and really that was primarily about me, like we like spoke of earlier, feeling all of the hurt and pain in my life that I had repressed,
Hmm.
healing that and letting it go in order for me to become the version of myself that I'm meant to be. But in that vision, the medicine gave me the nickname Zest. It said,
Hmm.
"Hey, this is your new nickname." I'm like, "Okay, that's kind of weird. You know, I didn't think much of it at the time other than it's kind of funny and cute, whatever. But then later on in my future journeys with the medicine, it started to slowly kind of reveal to me this new solo career.
Hmm.
Um, you know, and I really revealed it to myself through questions that I was asking. Like, for example, during my pre-initiation, I said, should I continue to reach out to festivals and venues to book Indubious? And it said no. Okay. First off, the fact that I'm asking this question shows that I have some intuition about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Second, the fact that it says no, I'm like, well, what? How? How? Why? What? That doesn't make any sense. And then I'm asking questions like, should I put this amount of budget into promoting this song or this album? And it says, no, don't spend any money on it. I'm like, okay. You know, and I'm talking to my soul, I'm talking to my higher self and to a boga and to God.
Yeah.
So these are questions from the divine that I'm getting these really clear answers on, which if anyone out there has ever heard of a boga medicine or not, I mean, this is not a metaphorical thing, but when you go into your ceremony, you write down questions to ask. Like and you
Mhm.
get direct, you can get direct answers. And so I'm getting these direct answers. My next question is, should I start a solo project? And it says yes.
Mhm.
You know, like, yeah. I'm like, all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You know, so it's these kind of these subtle, gentle little nudges that were pushing me towards readying my mind and myself and my, you know, uh, my emotions for letting go of something that I have been obsessed with tirelessly my entire adult life, which is Indubious.
Mhm.
And so I ended up actually going to Africa um, to live with the Bwiti for a month to do a full healing. And when I came back, the medicine revealed to me um, my full artist name, which is Heaven Zest. And so, if
Uh-huh.
anyone's curious where I got that name from, it came from the medicine gave it to me. I didn't.
And was this, yeah, was this before or after your second lung replacement?
This is all before.
Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
I since I've done my second lung transplant, I haven't eaten the medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So, yeah,
there's definitely some health things with the medicine. There's certain drugs you can't be on, um, and there's contraindications for sure. So it's not like a this is totally
this
safe.
is
Anyone can just go eat
very
it.
powerful, powerful
It's
plant.
very powerful, and when you and there's interactions with drugs, and people die. People
Yeah.
die from this
Yeah.
medicine if they don't listen very clearly to what a provider to what the providers and the tribes know very clearly.
Yeah. Not something to be flippant with.
No,
And
no, 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 no.
curious,
Very serious.
what was it that was the preparation for going into that ceremony with the plant medicines? Was there a physical and emotional preparatory um,
No,
practice?
there's no diet.
Hmm.
There you definitely don't want to be smoking a bunch of weed and drinking a bunch of alcohol going in. So that's like very clear, like abstain from that stuff for the I think it's about maybe a month prior, which
Hmm.
is easy for me because I'm not a
Yeah.
big user of either of those medicines.
Yeah.
Um, and there's no coffee, no caffeine allowed during. That's primarily because it's hard to sleep. And so if you're a coffee drinker and you stop drinking coffee, then it's gonna be a little extra easier for you to get rest throughout the week.
Hmm.
But there's no diet. There's no diet. In fact, this medicine has changed my relationship with food in such a dramatic way. And you know, my whole life, this is an interesting tangent to go down if you're
Sure.
down for
Do it.
this. My whole life I've been, you know, I'm the traditional kind of hippie. Uh, you know, I was a vegan for years. I was a vegetarian for a while, you know, organic and this and that. And I actually, after I became vegan and then started eating like just, you know, full omnivore again, I realized that I had a dairy allergy. And so I stopped eating dairy. I wasn't eating dairy for for like 10 years. I would get really bad skin problems. And it wasn't until I did Iboga that I could start eating dairy again. It kind of just took away my allergy. And it's funny because I went into that retreat with a bunch of questions about diet and food. Like, oh, what food should I avoid? What's good for me to eat?
Mhm.
And like kind of this overcomplicated, version of it.
Or through these presuppositions about food, what am I avoiding?
I mean, that's a lot more closer to the truth. It's like, in what way, how are you punishing yourself by denying yourself what you want, by, trying to nitpick every little thing? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I asked the medicine, I said, um, how do I know if something's good for me to eat? And it said, does it smell good? Does it taste good? Does it make you feel good? It's probably good. And so it's like, I've just gotten to a point where I eat whatever I want. I literally eat whatever I want.
Hmm.
And I feel healthier than I've ever felt. My relationship with food, dude, has been revolutionized. It's so incredible. It's such a simplification. And when I look back on what I was doing all those years with like weird, juice cleanses and all this kind of stuff, and like it was just it was just fucking with myself, just messing
Hmm.
with myself, and not allowing myself to just be good where I am. What if you're just fine how you are? What if?
What
What if
if?
you don't have to work on yourself? What if the only real work we need to do on ourselves is to understand that we're great already and love ourselves just as we are, like a little kid? Like a little
Mhm.
kid. Does the amount that you love that your little kid is like, hey buddy, I love you so much, but I'd love you way more if you cleaned up your room. You're gonna love the kid whether he cleans his room up or not.
Yeah, yeah,
And but that's
yeah,
not the same, luxury we give ourselves.
yeah,
We dangle this
yeah,
shit over our own heads, man.
yeah. And well, and add a lot of through the like, I pay attention to language through that pressurization that happens from obligation language,
Mm,
should, you have to, you,
yeah.
all those things uh pressurize us into this confine that we made for ourselves. And we're part of that process is acknowledging that we have the opportunity to expand our breath and remove that pressure of our own volition and create a space worth stepping into,
Mm,
and it's our own space that we're stepping into. Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
right. That's
it's
right, brother.
amazing.
Yeah.
So in back to the iboga thing, since
Yeah.
we went on the food thing, and
Yeah.
real quick note on allergies.
Yeah.
There seems to be, in my digging to it, and everybody else obviously use your own discernment in the processes that you engage for yourself. For me, seemed like allergies had a very, very strong emotional and story
I knew
content.
you were gonna say that, and that's 100%, bro.
Yeah.
I never had such a strong view or opinion on it until personal experience. But it's not just my personal experience, because I had that experience, and then, I get to hear about all the experiences of, the people that my brother has at his retreat center,
Mhm.
and it will just take away your allergies, buddy.
Yeah.
It will just take,
It,
and
it can,
yeah, it
which brings
can.
me back to my iboga question, and that is like you were talking about a trust fall with the universe. And when people engage those medicines, in my experience, and they have not, or and there's an unwillingness in some to step into that relationship of the trust fall with that space,
Mm-hmm.
and the attempt to grab onto things emotionally and try and arrest that fall can be really a painful experience.
You
What
have to be willing to let it all go.
And so for those who aren't willing to let it all go and they step into that, is there, in your knowledge of that space, is there a danger to stepping into those without a clear relationship with that?
As long as everything is screened properly by the provider, like the provider's making sure this person's not on any medications going to interact, making sure
Mhm.
this person's not, using drugs, and if they do have a history of drug use, make sure they're drug testing them before.
Mhm.
Definitely. As long as that kind of stuff is um being watched with a mindful eye, there's no real danger. But the efficacy is what's that question? Is this going
Mhm.
to this is this person going to have a effective healing? Because
Mhm.
medicine, it's not a cheap medicine. You're spending a good amount of money to go and do this. You're taking a week out of your life, and so if you want this to be worth your time, you have to be coming with the correct energy, and that's also the job of the provider, which is screening. You
Yeah.
know, you have to find out why that person is coming. Here's the people that are ready for the person that's going to benefit greatly from iboga is the person that has something in their life they've been struggling with for a long time.
Mhm.
And recently they've been getting to a point where they're fed up with it. They don't know what to do. They're ready to let it go. They would do anything to let it go. Who
Mhm.
who do I have to pay? What do I got to do to get rid of this? I'm done with it. I'm fed up. I don't want to do it another day. Please help me. This level of desperation is like a great indicator of how prepared you are energetically to really let it go. And when you're fully prepared, the medicine loves it. And the medicine is going to rip it right out of you. It's going to show you how not to go back there. But you still got to listen. You got to meet it halfway. It's not a magic pill. It's the closest thing to a magic pill that exists that I've ever experienced. But you have to be the other half of that magic pill. You got to say yes, yes, yes. I'm gonna do it. You got to just do your best. As long as you're ready to
Mhm.
do your best, you're ready to let it all go, and there's not anything. Something that I've seen is people go in with like, I want to heal this. I want to heal this one thing, but all this shit I don't even want to touch. That's not going to work. In order to heal this, you got to touch this. You got to heat. You have to cleanse it all out, or it's like a bad apple in the bunch. It's going to infect everything because that means you're holding on to a belief that's no longer serving you. You got to get them all out because the one belief, one false belief in there, it's like taking just one hair, plug it under your head, and put it in your eye. It's just one hair. That's going to bug you all day long. You
Great
can't see you're
analogy.
gonna be scratching your eye. You can't have it in there. That's
Yeah.
the truth.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen. That's what I've seen. I had this interesting experience of coming out of that healing and being so happy and healed, and like this changed my life so much that everybody I love, I wanted them to do the medicine also. So I'd like call my buddy. I'm like, dude, I did this thing. It was so fucking great. Oh my God, you gotta do it, bro. You gotta do it. So I inevitably ended up talking a few people into doing it. None of those people had good healings
Yeah.
because they got talked into it.
Yeah. They have to come to it for
It
themselves.
has to. It has to be a personal decision that I am ready to heal something in my life. I'm ready to grow and change. And like whether it's iboga medicine or not, when you decide that, you're gonna find it.
Yeah. Whichever
Whatever path it is.
method in creation is gonna
Yeah.
help you. Yeah.
I mean, people find all kinds of stuff, man. People find all kinds of stuff. There's all sorts of religions and spiritualities and meditation and breath work and Jesus Christ and water fast, whatever the heck's out there, man. I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff work for me. Not
Allopathy for you in some sense too.
say that again.
Allopathy in your lung replacement, for instance, was a bridge to that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it isn't for everybody because there's a lot of confusion in that space too.
Yeah.
And I do see a lot of confusion in the plant medicine, and that is, I recommend, for what it's worth, my suggestion rather, to really pay attention to those teachers that you gravitate towards and really look into yourself and look into what they're offering to be clear that they have your best interests and the best interests of the practice and process in their heart. And because there are those in that space who are in it for ulterior reasons, ulterior
Yeah, and
motives.
it's an issue like the blind leading the blind, right? Because
Yeah.
how can you heal somebody if you're not healed?
Yeah.
You're not
Physician
going to get
heal.
the best healing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's good advice. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there doing stuff and selling ideas that unfortunately can't even deliver it to themselves. So
Yeah.
it's
It's
a great indicator.
yeah, it's a strange space out there in so many ways. I mean, plant medicines or um, it, what are you engaged in learning? There's all kinds of avenues that it's actually there's so much available to us now that our own process of discernment and learning that process is of real importance in my life.
Oh yeah.
What are my discernment processes? How do I go into these new avenues of exploration and creativity in a discerning fashion so that I can trust, like you were talking about, my own intuition, my own knowing to clear the dross out of the field of all that's out there to hone in on what is actually going to lead into an opening and a more clarifying space of knowing,
Yeah,
um,
bro.
and knowing is more than simply information. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much out there. Um, well, brother, I feel like we went through a lot of territory. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on about your Heaven Zest project or?
Yeah. Come and follow me online if you're an online person. If you're a music person, come follow me on Spotify. Listen to my music. If you feel, you know, drawn, connected, or curious or interested, I'm out here making my art, living my life, and would love you to come along for the journey. I appreciate you reaching out and having me on the podcast, my brother.
Oh, it's been tons of fun, and
Yeah, man,
we'll do it again sometime. Uh,
for sure.
and for all of you out there, having seen the live concert and had tons of fun, I suggest checking out the live. And if you see Heaven's Zest coming to your town, I suggest checking it out because it's a good time. And we hope to have you out in our neck of the woods and soon to enliven the vibe. So
Yes,
lots of
sir.
love, everybody out there listening and attending. We thank you for joining us in this conversation, and love be upon you, grace to you, and see you soon. Cool,
Beautiful.
man.
Love you, buddy.
Thank you, my brother.
Yeah, man.